We're going.
Shit. Sorry.
Oh. All right. Greetings, pals.
Greetings, pal.
Greetings, pals.
Welcome to the podcast. We're on the Pal. My name is Frank.
My name is Marcus.
My name's Tom.
And this is the podcast where we talk about movies, love it or hate it. We debate it. Today
Certainly
we
do. Sorry.
Today we're debating The Exorcist. 1973.
Ooh.
We're going back in time.
What a fine year.
A fine year for film.
Gibbity D.
Directed by William Friedkin.
Friedkin?
He's a freaking man.
You workshopped this with me on the phone, and I was like, I think you could do better, but you just, you just came in with it.
I just forgot what we talked about.
Say cool. Say whip.
William Friedkin.
And we rate films out of 11 on this podcast.
We do.
I don't know why. Can someone explain it to
Tom,
me?
I can
why
tell
don't
you
you
what.
have a try?
I can give it a go. All right. It turns out I actually had to look this up because I'm not as familiar with. Are you guys Catholic? You're Protestant, aren't you?
Okay. No, and what the fuck?
I'm Protestant.
There are 10 commandments.
Sorry?
That's what you...
Anglican.
No.
Anglican.
Anglican, Protestant, whatever.
What's
It's,
your
church
angle
Are
in
you?
here?
Are you Catholic?
Whatever Hillsong is, I don't know.
Well, you were Hillsong.
Yeah,
That
whatever
makes
that
so
means.
much sense. All right. I had to look this up, but according to Catholic doctrine, you can actually masturbate with a crucifix 11 times before it's a sin. First 11 are free.
It's so...
And then once you get to the 12th one, then it's like, okay, now the devil's involved. But the first 11, it's okay.
For a very confronting film, you've brought up one of the good bits.
Figured we were going to have to get into
Well,
it.
we're going to have to get... Anyway,
If you didn't know what this movie was, apologies to anyone
You're
who's
fucking
gotten
welcome.
to this point and been like, I thought I clicked on Frozen. What the fuck?
So this is based on a novel, right?
Yeah, William
wanna do a
Peter Blatty.
Yeah, bladdy, blah. So do we want to...
Yeah, his name was William Peter, but then I just felt like, oh, yeah, yada, 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 whatever.
He's written a lot of books, whatever. Do we want to do a quick synopsis?
Yeah, we do.
What did it say about this one? When a mysterious entity possesses a young girl, her mother seeks the help of 2 Catholic priests to save her life.
That's lovely.
okay.
That
That's
works
all you
well.
need.
point.
That's all you need.
Straight
It's about
to
an
the point.
exorcism, actually.
Yes.
Oh.
Did you know? Hence
The title.
the title. I chose this film.
You
Listener,
did.
I
You did.
chose this.
What the heck?
I'm mad.
Yeah, don't say hell
Don't
this
say
episode. That would be too far.
Because then we'll get possessed.
Yeah.
I
It's an odd choice for
I
me.
just wanted to. I was like, let's just risk it to get the
Punish
biscuit.
yourself,
I
apparently.
hated it.
Of course.
Shout your name if you like this film.
Tom.
Marcus.
Frank.
What?
I liked it. It's a good film.
Oh, no.
I hated it,
Yeah.
I changed
but it's
my mind.
really good.
Now I hate it. There's got to be something wrong with it, right?
I think that being 1973, it is a little dated, and I was able to give myself, there's a little bit of distance between some of the effects, and I was like, okay, it's not real. Okay, I'm all right. Like if I watch The
So that
Exorcism
worked to your advantage.
To
I
my
suppose.
advantage,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
I think, too, that you've gone in with extremely low expectations.
I was literally nervous pressing play. I was like, oh, and it was. I think I watched it at 10 a.m. Sunny day,
Yeah.
bright light. I
You
was like,
called me, and
Yeah,
even more so than usual, it felt like a conversation that was very bit heavy and stalling. And I was like, "What are you putting off?" And you're like,
He's-
"I'm going to watch The
He's got
Exorcist."
He's got
And I was
a hot
like,
water bottle up his jumper. And he's
Yes.
all cozy. And
drinking a glass of milk.
Yeah.
And I had my Bible next to me.
Yes.
Just in case.
Right. Not that you need it. You've got it all memorized.
Memorized,
of
yeah.
course.
Genesis chapter 1. God created the earth. The world is changed. Okay. I'm putting off this episode as well.
Do you want to give us a score?
Do you want to give us
Yeah,
numbers?
give us
okay.
your score, Frank. Out of 11.
Like a 7?
Okay.
Solid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Straight down the middle
Yeah.
of liking it.
You want to go?
Can I guess yours, Tom?
Go ahead.
Tom's giving this a 9.8.
I'm not drinking the thing. Is that correct?
It's a 10. Whoa! Pretty close. Pretty
actually
close.
really
Gone
close,
with
yeah.
a round number. Okay.
Yeah, give me a big
I'm an
round.
8.1.
Yeah, 8.1. 8.1.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't like it much more than I do.
Yeah, but I'm not the surprise here. I think mine's a pretty good score for a film dated back in, what is it?
73.
73.
Yeah.
So it's what, 51 years old. Okay, directed by William Friedkin, starring famously Linda Blair.
I do
We need to
believe
talk
it is
about-
Friedkin, by the way, but it doesn't freaking matter. It's fine. We can just go on.
Definitely
with it.
freaking. Hey, it's his freaking choice, man.
Yeah, you do what you gotta freaking do. Have you guys seen interviews with him?
No.
I want to open this with, if you guys did any reading about William Friedkin and the production of this movie, seems like not a cool guy, actually.
No.
Seems like a bit of a dickhead, not a particularly a friendly or thoughtful or considerate person. However, I cannot get past the fact that he has given some of the funniest fucking interviews ever and some of the funniest answers. He's like a proper New York doesn't give a fuck guy. So he was doing an interview a couple of years ago, and there's a viral clip of him being asked about Al Pacino, who he directed in, can't remember the movie he directed in. It was after the Exorcist. And the director, who's like an Italian guy or European guy, is like being very delicate and going like, I wanted to ask you about, I know you worked with Al Pacino and it was a bit of a contentious set. And, I just thought when I saw what Pacino said about your directing, and William Friedkin goes, I don't give a flying fuck into a rolling donut what Al Pacino thinks. Does that answer your question? And the guy's like, yes, it does. Thank you very much. Like, he just says shit like that. He's like, I don't care at all. And he gives these brilliant, like, peeks behind the scene of how much he's like a straight down the middle, matter of fact guy. It sounds like sometimes to the detriment of the people working with him, he did cause a lot of problems. So
Such as?
Ellen Burstyn and Linda Blair, who are the Chris and Regan McNeil in the film, the mother and daughter, both have permanent physical ailments due to the shooting of this film. Ellen Burstyn was thrown in a harness or pulled in a harness much quicker than she was anticipating,
Against a wall.
and she broke or fractured her coccyx. And Linda
And
Blair,
for the
when she was
layman,
on
that is the
the butt bone. Sorry,
What?
it's also
The
the
butt
butt bone.
the botch bone.
Butt bone. No, I'm just stuttering the word bone. Butt bone.
There is so much, like this film. Okay, we're going to obviously talk about the film.
Linda
but there
Blair
is
was-
so much around it.
Real quick, Linda Blair was on the bed when it was shaking in that big scene, and she apparently sprained her spinal cord or something got sprained quite badly. So, like, people
No, it's
got
when she was being thrown up and down on the bed,
that might be it as well.
where her back was quite literally breaking.
Yes, there's some of the things they were doing.
And the take left in the film,
Yes.
is her screaming for them to stop.
Yeah.
It's not her being possessed. It's horrible, and it changes everything.
I want to be clear. I am not a fan of William Friedkin, the person. I cannot get past how like entertaining I find his persona. But he is. It was a dickhead. He died last year.
Say what you want, though. He did, didn't he?
Yeah.
Say what you want, but he made an incredible film because he had the creative freedom to do so. Now, it doesn't mean that everything he did was right, and it doesn't fly. You just can't treat a set like that.
No.
It's like 1973, so of course
But
you can get away with it
It's
then.
kind of like maniacal and genius. You know what I mean? Like,
It's like the not Anthony Hopkins, the who's the Psycho?
Hitchcock.
Hitchcock. It's that sort of thing, driving your actors to like to mania or like really push them to
and
the
it's a very
actual
it's a very
limits.
70s way. Of
Yes,
doing it.
or Kubrick with his. Although Kubrick is always a little bit outsized, where people are like, "Oh, he was a taskmaster. He was like a Nazi," and it turns out people are like, "No, he just did a lot of takes. You knew you were going to do a lot of takes. It was a lot of work." Like David Fincher. Friedkin's the one where people are like, "That guy was kind of a piece of shit. Like that guy was really hard to
They
get
all-
along with, and he didn't really care about the safety of the
Yeah.
people, and he should have."
They made you work, but at what capacity? You know what I mean? Like,
I don't think anything is
what
anyone
cost?
getting actually hurt is not worth a great movie.
No,
but we've got the great movie, and here we are. So, The Exorcist, fucking fantastic film. I watched it for the first time when I was maybe 15 or 16, and it scared the fucking shit out of me. I was so frightened. I didn't realize that a film that was so old could be so effective. I didn't realize there were things in the film that I just didn't know were possible in a movie. Like, and this was in an era.
It's like for me, what I found so harrowing about it is this Regan is such a nice, she's a fun kid. It's sort of the way it progresses. I'm so terrified for her.
Yeah.
For the actual character dying. I'm like, get the demon out of her, please. I'm just praying. I'm praying for
you're
it.
watching.
Oh my
You're
God.
watching every cut, every.
And the makeup gets worse and worse, and she got cuts
like,
around her lips, and
she's just degrading to a point where you're like, this is horrifying.
it's so well done.
And it's clever because every scene you see her, you're seeing just a slight progression.
Yeah.
Did you have anxiety when you first met her? Because I assume you knew a young girl gets possessed, like
Yeah.
going into this.
I've seen Scary Movie.
when
We've
you-
talking about this.
When you first meet Linda Blair in the movie,
Yep.
did you go, oh no? Like, was that your because that's my having not seen it for years, but I watched it a bunch as a teenager. Watching it again today after like 10 years, I was like, oh, I'm so fucking bummed out for where this is. Like, I'm in, but immediately I'm like, this little girl is so lovely, and I don't want this to happen to her.
Can I ask? Did you find something that I really love about this film, aside from the very obvious stuff, is how natural and grounded the conversational dialogue is between the actors?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
And there's that opening scene with her and her mother at the dining table. She's talking about, can I get a horse?
Yeah.
It's a really nice scene.
And the bit where she
And you're
steals the
like-
food and she runs out to the hallway and they
it's
have a little
cute,
wrestle.
and it's so endearing, and it's real. It feels very lived in for what is surprisingly in a 70s film.
Yeah, back in the day that didn't really happen.
Yeah.
And there's such
makes
an
you think-
undercurrent. I don't know if I just felt this because I was like waiting for something to explode
Yeah, of
early on.
course.
It builds so slowly, but there's an undercurrent of like, what's happening? Is the demon already here?
Yeah.
And you see
When
little
and how,
flashes
right?
and when and how and
Yeah.
it just makes me shiver.
yeah.
Oh, yuck.
Now-
Why did they do this?
I will say, I want to score this film higher. I'm already just going to get into it now, but I think the opening of the whole film is so pointless. I could just do without.
Of the Exorcist man in
Iraq.
In Iraq?
Yeah, he's
Digging up bones.
a real digging site out
Kind of
there.
just get rid of it. I don't really need now. Even though I've seen this film countless times now, I don't need it. It
On
doesn't.
average.
It doesn't add. Once every 2 years.
Okay, cool.
I just don't think it adds anything to me for me. And
I think you could. I agree, but I think I like the scene where he climbs the hill and looks at the demon statue. That's cool, but it could be shorter.
kinda, but it doesn't explain anything, and it doesn't add to the lore.
I thought you were talking about the serpent penis on the statue. And I was just going, how much shorter would you say?
I don't know.
That much shorter?
About there.
About there? Okay.
Yeah, for the listener, about there.
It's alluding to a whole bunch at the start of the film, but it doesn't really give me
doesn't-
any sort of payoff, and it doesn't really help.
It'd be great if you saw him do, I don't know, like, because you assume, looking back, that he has seen such horrors that he has to get away from that, and then he sees Satan again in that statue because he's been face to face with Satan that many
I
times.
guess so.
and you're
I
like,
find
"Oh."
him to be kind of unimportant too. Like, I'm far more interested in
The young priest?
Dimmy, the young priest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
Jason Miller.
And
Jason Miller.
it's crucial that you obviously get his background and a bit of context to him prior to visiting, right?
Yeah.
I think that's very important.
Yeah.
And I think that they flesh that out enough that it pays off for me.
Yeah.
Even when the older priest comes in and the aging makeup on him, which is hilarious, by the way.
You don't think it's good?
I think for the time it's really good.
I think now it holds up. I think
Yeah,
you
I
could
think-
show
what?
someone
Knowing how
who's
young-
never seen this movie and they'd be like, that's probably a guy in like his 60s who they've done up a little bit. And it's like he's like 40 years
Yeah,
old.
when you know
like
how
he's
young he
so
actually
young
is.
in this.
Yeah, but the makeup's not good.
I don't think that's true.
It's pretty caked. I don't know.
I think there's some scenes where, because of just the transfer that happens now, where you get 1080 and 4K, you're like, oh, we're seeing things you really couldn't have seen.
Yeah,
back
that's
then.
fair.
But I still think I always look at it and go, it just looks like Max von Sydow's just like 70. It just looks. He looks how he then looked 30 years later. They basically just nailed it.
But I don't think we needed him. I think. Oh, go on. Sorry.
I agree with you that when that scene's happening, I go, this is like table setting. It's not particularly fun. And once he shows up, I think you needed it. I think you did need him staring down a Pazuzu statue in the middle of Iraq while the sun is setting, just kind of contemplating the metaphysical good and evil of the
dogs
world.
are fighting over here because
Oh
like there's
my
evil,
God, that shot is so upsetting.
there's evil in the air is what
Amongst
you
others,
feel.
but
It's
yes.
like
So many others. But yes, just you're so right. The second it cuts to the shot of those dogs and the snarling, I'm just like, that is such an effective way of going, like, there's something wrong here.
Now, the white-faced demon, I don't know if you took the moment to pause on it.
no, of course not.
Check
Why would I
that.
pause
Have
on
you-
that?
Have you paused on it? and actually looked at it?
No.
It's kind of silly.
Well, it is because it's only there for a frame,
Yeah.
right, or a couple of frames.
But I don't know. It's never sat right with me either.
Oh, it worked for me.
yeah,
Did
it
it?
freaks me the fuck out every
yeah.
time.
Does it?
Every time. I'm just like,
See, I think because I've seen it done to death now, that sort of imagery,
Yeah.
that like the flash, like, did you see it? Didn't you see it? Like, did you catch that?
Yeah.
I think that it doesn't have that hold on me anymore. So going back and watching it now, I can't rightly remember my first watch of this film, and I don't remember it impacting me. Maybe I missed it. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
But
But do you think this film, it's laying the groundwork for horror films for the next 50 years.
This is it. Like culturally.
Culture's the most important.
When
horror film
I
of
was
all time.
growing up, like 7 or 8, and I kind of started to understand, there was this whole world of culture and things that existed before me. And I remember every time I would ask an adult or someone 10, 15 years older than me, what's the scariest movie ever? They said The Exorcist. When I was a kid, it was always The Exorcist. I never heard another answer. The Sixth Sense kind of came along and people were like, that's a great twist. And that is creepy, but always, every single person. So by the time I was old enough to watch it, I was like, I have to watch The Exorcist. It's all anyone says. And it didn't disappoint. Like, it freaked me out.
What version did you guys watch? You know there's 2 versions?
Yeah, there's the original version that cuts. Well, if you saw the one with the
stairs,
the desert, you saw the one with her coming down the stairs, back the spider walk, and you saw the ending where the priest and the detective go to the movie together.
No, didn't see the priest.
No, as in like at the end he's like,
do you want to go see the movie?
Do you want to go see the movie? That's what I mean. That shot.
I saw
Yes.
that, yeah.
So there were like 12 minutes cut from the original cinematic version in 73,
okay.
and those scenes were all cut.
Why?
So
Now, the
Was that
stairs,
last
I
scene?
know why. The others, I don't.
the stairs he just didn't think worked.
No,
and
because
I
the
think
stunties that did the scene couldn't do it safely without wires, and therefore the wires to him were too visible.
This has been-
He says, I can see wires. I think the shot is shit. Get rid of it.
this has been disputed because the person who did it then came out and said, I'm a trained gymnast. They didn't use wires.
Interesting.
So it's this whole thing where half the crew, it's so funny when even only a scant 50 years go by and people cannot agree on the story. But some people say it was the harness was in the shot and some people say he just didn't like the look of it. And it's kind of, no one really knows which, but regardless, when it's put in, that is one of the most effective moments in the film. I couldn't imagine the movie without it.
The 2 most famous scenes in the film, I think, would be the spider walk down the stairs and her head turning.
Yeah.
Twice, in fact.
I think the most, like, the spider walk's scary, but then it sort of cuts to nothing. You're like, okay, what just happened? Which, I don't know, leaves a feeling of unsettledness. But I think the scariest bit is the bed shaking. And Linda Blair is fantastic in this.
It's one of the best performances.
Oh my God.
Yeah, see, the bed shaking to me doesn't.
Sorry, the shake where she's being thrown.
Do you mean when she's...
Yes.
When the bed itself is doing this stuff,
Yeah.
whatever, when she's being visibly thrown up and down onto the bed like she's being ragdolled, which she is, that's upsetting. And then knowing the background adds a layer.
That's the moment where my like troll modern brain comes the closest to laughing. When they walk in and she's like sitting up and sitting back down really quickly. And for a second, part of my brain goes, like, it does look a little silly. And then just the effect of the whole scene kicks in. I'm like, no, this is still terrifying. But it's like, if I was watching that with a teenager today, I could imagine them laughing. And
Now-
be like, that looks stupid. And I'd be like, yeah, sure. I'm sure
but
that
it
looks...
doesn't because it looks real.
I agree.
Looks
But
painful,
I get
looks
how that
uncomfortable.
moment sort of like
It's
tweaks.
hard to compare, but The Conjuring 2, which was only back in, the last 10 years.
Yeah.
Does a lot of bed shaking scenes in a very similar respect. Does it 10,000 times better and far more effective, and it is spine chilling.
Isn't that a sex scene though?
Patrick Wilson, hello.
The Conjugal.
The Conjuring?
I'll let you finish. Keep going.
Continue.
What do we think?
Continue. That is the word.
I don't know. Moving on.
Continue.
I think something that you pointed out, Frank, that's really effective in this movie is the timeline is very uncertain.
Yeah.
A scene will happen, and then you see Ellen Burstyn, who's fucking amazing in this.
So good.
And you're like, I don't know if it's been a week. I don't know if it's been a month. I don't know how long it's been. And
But you're just worried the whole time. You're just like,
it's scarier to think
Fix
it's
it
been
already.
shorter. It's
Yeah.
scarier to think it's been a couple of days and she looks harrowing. She looks
Now-
like she's not slept.
No, see, I find it worse if it's been longer because I imagine Ellen Bernstein is going to these doctors, right? That's the whole process. She's going to doctors, to scientists, getting all these tests done, and they can't figure it out, and she starts losing it. And that's that whole unraveling, and that's what you love to see. In my mind, it had been maybe 2 months, 3 months, that sort of period of time.
Do you want some? Because I've seen this film 100 times, I ended up doing a lot more looking back on the background and everything like that. But do you know much about the radiologist scene?
The angiography where they go in through her neck.
That's horrific, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah,
Horrible.
yeah.
But no, do you know the radiographer's assistant? Have you heard about him?
No.
wrote
Yeah,
his name down.
he murdered someone.
Paul
didn't he?
Bateson, his name is, and he's a serial killer.
Yeah, that's right.
And at the time of filming this, had murdered, supposedly murdered, quite a few people.
Yeah.
Admittedly murdered, and was put away for it.
What?
But they could never find the bodies.
I'll
Read up on it because he's mentioned in He's got a character in Mindhunter, I think.
Sure.
He's got. They made the same director, Friedkin, made a film about him.
I didn't know that. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I knew that. I've spent a lot of time reading about like the cursed nature of this film, and we could get into that a little bit later if we want, like Butler's Pantry style. But there's so much that was happening at the time to do with the production and like the length of it, and how it resulted in so many different people getting injuries and people associated with the shoot dying or getting grievously injured. It was a lot going on at the time.
I think we can go into the pantry.
But-
like, what else are we going to say? It's terrifying and it's so well made.
Well, I want to talk a tiny bit about.
I'm happy to move on. You know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I didn't pick up on the social cue there, but you gripped me really hard.
It's so funny you liked this though.
Yeah,
Far
it's
out.
good. It's good film.
I want to talk about the
Good
things
acting.
that still didn't work in a moment for you, because it's still a 7. So obviously there are things that maybe you're like, oh, I wish this could have worked, this could have. But like the thing that I was very surprised to find now is that if you'd asked me, I watched it this morning and I saw it maybe 5 or 6 times as a teenager. And if you asked me, what are the 5 scariest or most upsetting moments in the movie, I'd have gone, oh yeah, the crucifix. Her head going backwards.
yeah.
Her, making her mother like lick her. All these awful things, yelling at the people.
And sorry to interrupt, but the obscenities she yells seem so out of time. Seem like you'd hear them in this day and age.
Yes.
So hearing that in the 70s,
That's what shocked me as a
Holy
teenager.
crap.
I was like, oh, I'm watching an old movie, and then the doctor says she said for me to get away from her fucking cunt.
Yeah.
And I was like,
You don't have to say it here.
Well, we can bleep it. And then I remember at 15 being like, that's not allowed.
Yeah.
This movie is old. They can't say those things.
I agree.
And of course,
I still agree.
It was a few years after the Hays Code had collapsed and Bonnie and Clyde and The Godfather was the year before this. So a lot of movies had come out that suddenly were a lot more graphic and a lot more sexually sort of
Charged.
sexually charged. The scene that upsets people so much, and it actually upset me this time, and I was like, I don't know how I dealt with this when I first watched it, was the angiography.
Yeah.
I watched it today and I was like, how did I forget about this? This is so upsetting.
The needle is so big and thick, and then you seeing them aim for the hole and just going, I think I've gotcha, bang, just popping it in this hole, and then the blood, and then
they run a
squirting.
thread through,
Yeah.
and you're like, no, stop what you're doing.
and
the
then
casual
saying that-
nature of all this blood's just pulsing out, and they're like, yeah, here
They've
we go,
had
here we go.
they've had actual people in the field watch the film and say it's the most realistic depiction of that in the film they've ever seen.
And it's crazy that
it's
in a
so
movie
messy.
with demonic possession and projectile vomiting and crucifix masturbation
Broken
and all
necks
these
and-
broken necks, all these terrible, horrific things and lacerations, and people came out and were like, the surgery scene was the worst. Like
And
some
that-
people
yeah.
truly are like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen.
At the
in a
time
movie.
during the watch, supposedly that was the most
Where people
confronting thing.
People would
The
pass
that talk
out, people
about.
would leave.
Yeah.
I think terrifying moment for me was when the young priest walks back in after taking a break and the old priest is dead. And I was like, oh no, they're going to lose. Oh no, the demon's going to win.
What's crazy is that he just dives on it and just starts laying into it.
Yeah. It's like, because no, that's what
We're talking about the
that's
very
what you
end of the
want,
film
but they're
here,
like, because the old priest is like, you have to like remain composed and don't let them get you. And he's like,
fuck this.
Haymaker.
Prison rules, bitch.
so good.
And yet we're talking about it now and it's hard not to find it funny. And in the moment you're like, I'm totally locked in. on this. Like,
Totally horrified.
I'm so scared for that man and what's going on. The fact that when he walks in, she's sitting with her arm up on the bed set or the actual the banister, and she's just looking casually, almost a little surprised. Like she doesn't really know what's going on. It's so creepy. She just doesn't
then she
acknowledge it, and then she
giggles.
starts giggling, and you're like,
and
"This
you're
is
just waiting. You're just waiting.
horrifying."
I don't like it.
So many single shots in the film that have nothing to do with the possession, Specifically with Reagan, are very upsetting. The dreams that Dimmy, thank you, that Dimmy has of his Dimmy that he has of his mum, where she's at the subway calling out to him, and he
And he's
can't hear
running
it, and then she
straight.
goes back down, and then when he goes back in the room, like you said, and she's just sitting up in bed, pale white, staring at him. So upsetting, like really.
And then
really.
like he lays into her and does the haymaker, and then he goes, "Take me, come into me," and you're like, "Don't like that's not going to work," and then it's just going to be bad. But then jumps out the window, or he's thrown out the window.
I think my take is jump.
He jumps.
He jumps. Okay, great.
Yeah.
But question mark, it's over because that can't kill a demon. But it's
Well,
and
the
it's
demon,
like, obviously
it's like a parasite in the
I
host,
kind of
right?
like that though. I really like the film doesn't allude to more than he's out the window, he's dead, therefore we now don't know anything else. And it doesn't do this mysterious like someone in the distance.
Well,
their
this is
eyes
what
start glowing.
This is what I thought that then the lieutenant who comes in after is like, hey, you want to watch a film? I was like, that's Satan. He's Satan.
Oh, now the lieutenant's.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, so I think that's how
Because I was like,
brains are
why is that
programmed
scene
to-
there? Why is he saying the same dialogue as he did to the other priest?
I think the reason Batty wanted it in there anyway, Blatty.
Blatty.
What a Blatty. Why he wanted it in the film and he was upset it got cut is he's like, I ultimately was seeking to write a book about good, triumphing, even if not in obvious ways, over evil. Little incremental steps of goodness and virtue can push back the darkness and like defeat the tide of evil. And just those guys at the end being like, let's go get lunch. It's like, thank God it ends on like a nice kind of cute upbeat thing. It
kinda
feels
creepy.
a little
Because why is it the exact same dialogue?
Well, it's not. He's not. In the original,
but-
he says Othello with Groucho Marx, and in this one, he says Wuthering Heights.
Yeah,
I've seen
so
it.
different.
Another one. I think it's cute. It's almost like a little snappy comedy.
For me, it feels like I'm trying a tactic and this is and I'm going to kill you. Like, I don't know. It felt something like that.
Interesting.
But maybe that's just me because that's what happens in horror films is the demon always carries on, right? Like we know that's sort of like.
I've always
unspoken
interpreted it as Jason Miller's sacrifice. He affirms his faith again in the moment, especially when he's like going through the exorcism with Max von Sydow.
Yeah.
And then when he takes the demon into him and instead of attacking Regan, he jumps out the window. It absolutely wrecks me. I had a very emotional reaction to it today that I never had when I was younger.
Really?
Especially when Father...
Oh, did you watch it today?
I watched it this morning. And when he was lying there out the window, I was like, this is really getting to me. And when Father Dyer came and said, do you want to make your last confession? I just started bawling. I was like, this is so upsetting.
The moment that got me is just before that. So he's just jumped out the window and then Ellen Bernstein comes in and grabs her. But she's not sure. She goes to Regan and she's like...
Yeah.
And it's hesitant and it's so
That's true.
devastating. Because you imagine your child. Oh,
Now she...
I imagined this would be quite a difficult watch for you, Frank, for that reason. But yes, the idea of your child just...
and you can't do anything.
You can't help him. Yes, when Regan's crying and she finally goes to her. And then another bit that really I found very stirring is when they're leaving, finally at the end, and Regan sees the priest's collar and she doesn't know why, but she leans forward and kisses him. And I'm like, that's so upsetting. That's so beautiful.
She doesn't remember it.
She has no idea. It's a gorgeous film. It's very understated despite being horrific and gruesome.
so enormous
But
as well.
yet there's so much of it that, like you say, Marcus, in just quiet moments of dialogue, very, very naturalistic exchanges between people.
Oh, sorry, quiet dialogue. When she pees on the carpet and then she goes, you're going to die up there.
Yeah.
And But then...
Now, was that to the director? Who did she say that to?
She says it... What do you mean?
Well,
she says it to everyone at the party. No, the director's left at that point because he got drunk. But she's just saying it to everyone.
You're
right?
gonna die
You're
up
going to die
there.
up there. I guess it's kind of meant to be a threat to Ellen, right? Or meant to be a threat to her mum that you're going to come up and I'm going to kill you because I'm the devil.
Yeah.
But it's not only how horrifying that is, it's when she's bathing her and she's like, darling, why did you say that? Do you know why you said that? And she just can't get a response out of her. And when she puts it to bed that one time and she says, Mum, what's wrong with me? You're like, this is so sad. It's so devastating.
So devastating. And also there's that undercurrent like we've spoken about. She's bathing her. It's so vulnerable. And you're like, you're going to get attacked. You're going to get murdered. Like, how can you stay this close to this level of evil? Of course you can. It's her child.
Yeah.
I looked
Fuck
into...
this film.
I looked...
I see why it's just a 7 now. I get it.
I looked into the how they filmed a lot of it as well.
Yeah.
And they've got like found footage of someone filming the director going through certain takes. So I don't know if you recall, it's a very vague scene, but it's when the babysitter and a whole bunch of other people are going up the stairs to go and visit her in a room again. And it's like a tracking shot coming up the stairs and into the bedroom. It's a really interesting shot. You might have to go back and look, but Flick had already seen this, and she said, "Do you know how they shot that?" I was like, Now I'm thinking about it, and I was like, "Well, the camera doesn't seem that steady, but it doesn't seem like they're kind of walking backwards up the stairs because they kind of the camera's sitting at a point where you physically can't. Like it's almost like it's going through walls. It's crazy.
I know what you mean. Yes.
So it turns out it's a set, right? So it's an open roof. It's a set, and he's the director with the camera is in this sling, this harness, floating, and they're basically pulling him around, and he's just free floating around the set, filming it in real time. Really? It's an incredible shot, and you look at that and you go, "This is '73. He was ahead of his time."
Yeah,
that's cool.
Ahead of his time.
Wait, does that mean he was DOP as well?
No. He had a DOP that worked with him on French Connection. Yeah. But he would have, whoever was in the sling.
Also French Connection.
Yeah. I mean, and he's coming off of that because he won Best Director and Best Picture for that a few years earlier. Yeah. So that's basically why he got to make this.
This has a lot going for it. Now, sorry, my ignorance. The mother, what's the actress?
Ellen Burstyn.
Bursting with talent.
I can only properly recall seeing her in two things. It's this
Requiem.
And Requiem.
Yeah, those are my big
Requiem
references.
Is so upsetting as well. She's like a good trauma actress.
Oh yeah. She doesn't take easy roles, I don't think, and she feels very
old Murph in Interstellar.
Yeah, I was about to say she's in Interstellar. She's in the bed at the end, and that's very upsetting.
She's
right.
Good. And I'm talking about best cries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She plays someone who has been conditioned to live a life that is more domestic and more sort of suburban and regular, and yet is brimming with some dark energy. And that's in The Exorcist, and it's there in Requiem, where she's become this woman who her life has not become the way she wanted it to, and she's taking these steps to, she thinks, improve it, and it is eroding her sanity. And watching her in Requiem is one of the most upsetting things you'll ever see. But watching her in this is, she's electric. She's fantastic in this film, and she's so comforting and nurturing, and yet she's such a frayed nerve.
Broken and frayed nerve's great. She's also Barbara Bush in W.
Oh yeah, that's true. I haven't seen that movie.
Talk about a broken woman
in so long, but
and Josh Brolin.
Now the music as well. We haven't talked about because the music is
because it's barely in it. It's great, but there's like 17 minutes of score in this film, and it's incredible.
When it does,
Tubular Bells, which is by I want to say is it Mike O'Brien? It's Mike someone, and it's that classic theme that we really only hear properly when she's walking down the streets of Georgetown. And it sounds incredible.
Do you know it's funny because it sounds so similar to the Halloween?
Yeah, which was like maybe
Piano?
5 years after this. I think 78 would have been Halloween. So it's John Carpenter-esque very much.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's so darkly pretty too.
Every horror film that came after this is basically just like, I saw The Exorcist. It made horror prestige. It made it more refined. It gave it a place in the cultural conversation that it didn't seem was possible. Yeah. You don't get Silence of the Lambs if you don't have this movie.
No.
There's such a similarity between the weird suburban sort of like evil brooding beneath the surface. The shot design, the composition, the claustrophobic emotion of it all is so much there. In Fincher, it's Seven, right? You wouldn't have Seven if you didn't have this movie. So much of that stuff as well. I love this film.
The demon, again, I should have done the research properly, but the demon is supposed to be some
Pazuzu.
ancient... Yeah, and is it like Demon of the Wind or something?
I can't remember if it's a Mesopotamian or it's like a demon of some sort of like, culture from antiquity. But it is, it might be a wind demon. It might be, it's like the way it looks in that statue, that chimeric thing where it's got like a serpent penis and it's got like a dog head and a man's body or whatever. And it is just, I think, meant to be a reference to the idea that there are... Hey, what's up?
I'm just here. I'm just scared.
Viscerally upset. Can I just say, it is the horniest demon ever.
This movie is
that giant penis that wraps around his leg.
Exactly what Frank said. It's so sexually charged in a way that would have been so confronting. I think that this movie... Should we get into the butler's pantry?
Sure.
The butler in a pantry with a mic.
Again?
The butler's pantry.
I swear we did
that
before.
last episode.
No, I swear we've already done this.
We should get into the cursed nature of the filming, but the thing I guess I want to say the most is this film was a phenomenon that has been seen maybe like, I don't know, 10 times in film history. Like it's very difficult to pinpoint many other films that had the impact this movie did. It made so much goddamn money. It's really hard to do adjusted for inflation on an international level because obviously different currencies and different indexing and stuff like this.
Don't be a coward.
But it made like $450 million, like, and which to this day it would just be in the billions. Like it is one of the highest grossing American domestic films of all time. it was a stupidly successful word of mouth film, and the producers, Warner Brothers didn't think it was going to be that big.
Lifetime gross was 660, actually.
660, but is that adjusted?
No.
Yeah, I think that. So it's like just billions and billions. If we're just talking about how much money this movie
And
has
cheap,
made,
right?
Say again.
Fairly cheap to make.
Well, it went over budget a lot. Like it was cheap. When you look at it now, you're like, oh, only 14 million. It's like, yeah, but that would have been like 70 million in 70s. And I think originally gave him like
mid-budget. That's
it's mid-budget, but
It's
I
not too
think
bad.
it's before the blockbuster era when they didn't really. give
Jaws
that much
hadn't come
money.
out.
It was
Not
2
for a
years
couple
before
years.
Jaws, right? So this movie was so many things at once. It was so much body horror. It was so much over sexualization. It was so much American sort of a reflection or a dark mirror of what is going on in America with Vietnam, what is going on with the countercultural movement. Are things not improving like the promise of the 60s was trying to guarantee people? And so much of that packed into one package. I think if just it had been one of those things a lot, people would have rejected it. But it was so much, people were like, this is fucking undeniable. This is a cultural force. There's no way to get past it. And it established touchstones for horror and for cinema in general that have yet to be paralleled in many ways. And you could talk about Scary Movie 2 like you do, like the James...
Like I always do.
Like you always do. It's hard to stop you with the James Woods performance and the Andy Richter. Is it Andy Richter?
Andy Richter.
Yeah.
Your mother's in here. Mom, would you get out of there?
Would you get out of there?
I was like, surely those are all jokes. And I realized that a lot of that's like taken verbatim from the script of this.
Yes. Natasha Lyonne pissing on the floor.
Messed up stuff that the possessed kid does. I was like, that's all
The
jokes for the movie, for Scary Movie, right?
Yeah.
No, that's all like real.
The stuff they don't take is the stuff that I bet they were just in a boardroom or they were in a writer's room for a week trying to work out.
Yeah.
They're like, there's no way to make masturbation with a crucifix funny. We can't do it. It's too brutal. We're dropping it,
You've
right?
got 50 jokes in there that you could take.
The vomit and the head spinning and all that. But even with that stuff, you watch it and you're like, it is not diluted at all. I do not watch this movie and start laughing. I'm just petrified the whole time it's
It's
happening.
amazing that with such, it's been so parodied, it's so, known now, and it's so dated that it still holds up to this level.
I
It's
think
pretty
so.
incredible.
I'm quite desensitized nowadays. I mean, I had a overly active imagination as a kid growing up, so horrors to me they just didn't work.
Because your life was a horror.
Then something,
Is that what you're saying?
and then something happened, something twisted in me, whereas then I accepted it and I couldn't get enough of it. Now I watch a film like this and I'm not affected by it in the same way that you both are talking about it. Mm-hmm. I don't feel the tension necessarily. The only in the last couple of maybe decade, in the last decade, a film that's made me feel like that was the first Conjuring film.
Yeah.
And it had been a long while since something.
Would you say actually scared or just like, oh, this is tense and fun?
Genuinely like heart in throat, like tensing the seat, like regulating my breathing, sort of terrified of watching. I was like, this is great. I've missed this feeling.
Hereditary didn't do that for you?
No, it didn't.
It did that for me.
But I had to turn the film off and process for, I kid you not, a week when her head comes off.
Yeah, that's one of the most...
Yeah, we didn't hear from you from that week.
Confronting scenes in cinema, I think I've
Both
seen.
times a head comes off in that movie, actually. It's
Yeah,
most
not the
confronting.
second time, not so much. Anyway, we're talking about her.
Yeah, sorry. We're talking about...
Anyway,
the
but I miss that feeling, and I love hearing you both. Tom, you over-exaggerate anything anyway. I know that Frank...
People just don't understand that I'm full of emotions and I have nowhere to put them. Movies are all I've got. But I do feel that way. The way you're describing with like heart in my throat when she's going, every time Reagan screams and Ellen Burstyn runs up the stairs, I'm like, don't fucking go in there. Like, don't go in there. It's going to be horrible in there. And it's always horrible.
No, but she has to go in there.
She has to, but I have that feeling of I'm just
of
I
course.
can't
Why
go
don't
into
you
that.
don't want her to be
I can't go into that room again.
You just want it to be over.
I just
Nominated for 10 Oscars.
Yes.
It won 2 of them. Did it?
Sound and screenplay, right? Yeah. Which is
not like makeup or...
Adapted script.
I don't know if they had makeup category there.
See, that's crazy.
They did
Art direction,
They
set
basically
direction.
introduced makeup because of An American Werewolf in London. They were like, we can't keep ignoring shit. Like Rick Baker's out here making this incredible shit. I've never seen it.
Oh, really?
But
Oh,
I
you should watch it.
But they introduced it for that. But
Ahead of
yes,
its time.
yeah, like you were saying, Frank. What were some of the other ones?
What?
Some of the other nominations?
Nominations?
Yes.
I can't read. Don't worry about it.
Picture, Picture, director,
actress,
actress, supporting actress, supporting
You
actor.
want to say it or want me to say it?
Yeah, well, you
There
said
you
you
go.
can't read.
You
buddy.
opted out.
I know, right? You definitely made that call. Regardless, I would have given it to Linda Blair. I think this is one of my favourite
And that's
performances.
controversial, right? Because they didn't want to. Why didn't they want to? There was a reason they were like, well, we can't give it to her because
I think there were a handful of things.
what Marcus is spelling.
MVP. Let's do MVP. we can't do that.
Well, just before we get into MVP, just because the Oscars and then the curse stuff, there was some issues with one. It's not her voice when it's
When he's doing the voice like that.
that's Mercedes. There's a very very well known actress from the time, and then also Ellen Dietz is her stunt double, who apparently or buddy double, who apparently is in it for like 17 seconds.
so wait, that's a female doing the dub.
Yes,
It's not
who
a
said-
male.
who getting into the pantry, the woman doing the dub, chain smoked, drank whiskey, and was strapped to a chair to record it. And like William Friedkin was like, "Yeah, I'm putting you in like manacles, and I'm like making you frightened for your life to get this." Again, not a cool dude.
Didn't need to.
Really fucking weird that he did shit like that.
It's like,
but that's what they ended
It's
up
the
doing.
Laurence Olivier thing.
Sucks
My
I
dear
forgot
boy,
about
have you
that.
tried?
Have you tried acting? Yes.
Just let them act.
There's
man.
a scene where Dimmy's at the table and he's startled by the phone ringing. You know what I'm talking about?
yeah.
Do you know the background on that one?
Uh,
Friedkin fires a gun.
yes, I have. Heard
Oh yeah,
this.
he was firing guns on set. He told him that.
Natural reaction. And Dimmy lost his shit. He's like, I don't fucking need this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm an actor. Let me do my
just
thing.
say.
He told him that if the vomit was going to hit him on the chest and it hit him in the face instead, which was porridge made to look like pea soup.
I love porridge.
He slapped the actor who plays Father Dyer at the
Yeah,
end
yeah.
before he gave him the last rites because he said he wasn't getting an emotional enough performance out of him. William Friedkin's not a cool guy. Really, real fucked up dude.
No.
You did
I
that to
still-
me before this record.
That's true, and it's not working. So
I'm emotional.
And he didn't shy away from it in interviews. He's like, I slapped
I
him.
slapped that guy. I thought I needed to do it, but then he also so I slapped that fucking guy. He wasn't crying. William Peter Blatty.
Will Smith directed this.
William Peter Blatty started out learning a lot about the Jesuits when he was younger. And the person he learned a lot of it from was a man called Thomas Birmingham. Thomas Birmingham plays the really iconic looking head of the university. You guys know, with the really high forehead and the grey hair that is talking to Jason Miller or talking to Dimmy when they're at the bar.
Oh yeah.
That guy
Yes.
who looks incredible is not an actor. That's just the guy who taught William Peter Blatty everything he knows about religion. And when he finally wrote the book, he was like, "Will you be in my film, please? Because I think you'll be great in this role." He kills it. He's so good. He's got such a good face. Yeah. And he allegedly, things kept happening on the set where family members were dying. People were getting really injured. Max von Sydow had to leave early on because I think his father or someone might have died. Like, all these terrible things were happening. Jason Miller's son almost died in a motorcycle crash. And there was a bird that flew into some of the circuit breakers. All these terrible things kept happening. And so William Friedkin asked Thomas Birmingham, who was their basically like consultant on the set, like, "Hey, would you bless the set and bless the crew just because we're a little worried?" And Thomas Birmingham was like, "I think that's going to do more harm than good, man. Like, people are going to freak out. We're already doing a movie about demonic possession. I'll tell you what, I'll just say you're all in my prayers tonight." Next day, one of the sets burnt down. And he came in and was like, "I'll do a blessing over the set." It feels like maybe it could use actually some of
up.
God's love.
It's such an incredible read to look on.
Insane. Now, some people do say that William Friedkin exaggerated the degree to which it was cursed. When a film films for 12 months, shit's going to happen.
He's out there throwing birds into
I mean, yeah,
circuits
that's it. He's like,
and lighting the set on
He's
fire.
I don't know what happened. Someone fired a gun. The set fell apart.
He's still holding the jerry can. He's like, I don't know.
Yeah, someone got shot in the leg. I
You
don't know who did
gotta
it.
slap some people sometimes. Come on.
Yeah,
Like,
pistol whip. So, do you guys believe in demonic possession? Do you think that could happen to you? Is that why, like, do you think people believe in it and that's why it's scary?
yes. And I think that the degree to which people can believe
Marcus
in things.
doesn't believe. Marcus doesn't
No,
think it's real.
I just think, of course, people believe in it. I think because, and I don't want to touch too heavily on this, but,
I believed in it
people
growing up.
rel-
I'm gonna say
exactly.
that
People
straight
believe
up.
in religion.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
This is the worst consequence.
One is reinforcing positive values, and one is
Well,
absolutely
they
not.
rule
It's-
you by fear.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing.
It's the
like,
yin and yang of the conversation. So yeah, of course, people believe in otherworldly spirits and possession and all the nasty, creepy critters in the shadows. Like
yeah.
And it's easy to buy into it. It is super easy to buy into it. And it's such a great genre as well to explore. And mind you, done to death now.
Well, yeah,
I
there's
can't
the
watch
whole
another
series.
exorcism film. Like you've seen one, you've seen them all now.
Yeah.
Same
I did like
as-
the exorcism in Constantine. I know that's a different thing, but where they get the demon in the mirror,
The Mirror.
that's cool.
That movie's rules. That's a good
It's
movie.
only
That
interesting
movie's
now
rules.
That movie's
You
rules.
heard it here first.
Now, Talk to Me very recently did a
Great call.
very
I'll talk to you about
fresh take on. Hit him if you want.
No, I was
Give
going
him
to
time,
go
I'll
hold
get it
his
on
hand.
footage. But Talk to Me did a very fresh take on the possession genre.
I agree. With a different thematic concern as well.
Was it more just like an interview format with the demon?
It was Talking Heads
Yep.
style.
Like,
If he was asking the question sincerely, I would answer it
No.
sincerely. But
It's more an addiction narrative or a narrative to do with like experimentation as adolescents. Regardless, The Exorcist, I think, is a very powerful film thematically to look at when you go that the people in the world of this movie who really don't want it to be a demon or don't want it to be demonic are the most frustrating people in it. And it's really compelling and interesting that when Dimmy goes to beyond the head of the university, I mean, whoever's maybe the head of the chapter of that church or whatever, and then the next scene is him and Thomas Birmingham just being like, well, okay, we better get someone in here to deal with this because it seems like a demonic possession. And they just go with it. They're straight away just like, yeah, there's evil let loose in the world and we need to contain it. Let's do that.
Yeah.
And all the doctors are like, no, there's a perfectly reasonable explanation for this. And there's not. There's not. I don't think that necessarily...
that's what would happen if you presented with these symptoms.
Of course.
They're of course going to assume mental illness or
Yes.
illness of some kind.
It's why it's an effective story because you go, yeah, well, of course, in real life, no doctor would go, well, this could be this. And you hear the hesitation in his voice, that doctor who's like, I mean, you could get an exorcist, I guess, if you want. But it is a compelling narrative because the notion of evil that people think they can recognize and diagnose and treat with the modern amenities and the things we've developed in the world and the arrogance of that I find very interesting. Where they're like, yeah, we have doctors, we've got psychiatry now, we've got angiographs, we've got these things we can deal with. We can go into Vietnam and we can fix things. You know, we're America, fucking hoorah. And then it's like, man, there's a spiritual decay here that you are not analyzing properly. And it is going to continue to erode away. I think that shit's fascinating. But anyway, sorry. I know we were saying earlier we should do MVP. So
were we?
ages ago. I'm sorry. I really like this movie.
No, it's interesting, Tom. It's good that you're talking a lot. I like it. Let's keep it going.
Linda Blair. Maybe followed pretty closely by Jason Miller.
I was going to say Jason Miller.
Jason Miller's
maybe.
excellent. Future Jacob Elordi.
Oh, yeah.
That's my take.
Yeah,
That's
that's
Jacob
good.
Elordi in like 30 years.
No, Jason Miller's a
That's
better
very
actor.
interesting.
I think Ellen Burstyn. Burstyn.
Ellen Burstyn.
Burstyn.
With joy.
No, with fear.
Yeah.
She... Ooh. I mean, Linda Blair, but I feel like it's a strange performance, whereas Ellen Burstyn is like more of an acting, like a realistic acting challenge, you know?
I
Linda
think
Blair is
so.
kind of like just messing around and throwing herself around. Obviously, that's not fun, but Ellen Burstyn, yeah, MVP.
Depends what you're taking into account here, like who's been through what, who is putting in more work. I think on a technical scale, yeah, it's Ellen. Like, I think that, sorry, and the actor?
Linda Blair.
No,
Jason Miller.
Dimmy.
Jason Miller.
I think it's him.
Yeah, I mean, he's very
But
good.
there's a
He's
scene where
very
he's
good
going
in
through
this.
the psych ward and he's locked his mum up in it. It's
Oh,
just,
yeah, that's heartbreaking.
just horrid. I don't know. I think he got a lot more to do in a weird way. I think
The closing act of the film is his.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'd
And you
agree
sort
with
of
that.
finish and
Yeah.
you go, wow, he
Yeah.
was great.
But whereas Ellen's consistently very strong throughout, and the progression and the build. I don't know. It's tough. I honestly don't know.
Three-way tie.
Oh no, I would say two-way tie.
I'm
not giving it to Linda.
He's got a wryness to him that no one else gets. I mean, one of my favorite things about the movie is that conversation with him and Thomas Birmingham in the bar, which is not the character's name, but that's the actor's name, and I remember it. Is when it's almost like he's being coded like a detective.
Sorry, he does play Tom.
He just plays Tom. Excellent. He's being coded or played like a detective, or he's like, I can't do this anymore. You gotta get someone else, you know? You're the best we've got, sort of thing. Like he's trying to retire and they won't let him, you know? And you're like, what is this guy's job? Oh, he's a psychiatrist to priests, which makes sense that he'd be losing his faith in a world that feels as if it's losing its morals. But I like that he's kind of funny sometimes. I love when he sits down with Linda and the drawer opens and he goes, "Did you do that?" Pushes it closed. "Do it again." "In time." "No, do it again." Like he's kind of playing with her a
that
little
pushing-
bit.
yeah,
He's
pushing
like, "I don't
buttons.
believe this shit. And so I'll let you play it out as long as you want, but I'm not buying into this."
Yeah.
And I love the way he plays that.
At what point does he believe?
When he's in there with Max von Sydow and the bed raises up and he's not responding.
What
And he's
about
like, "The
that-
response, Damien."
Hey, Frank, how did you go with the scene where she levitates and floats and is really still? Like she's planking and moving up so slowly.
Yeah, I hated it.
That's a tense moment, actually. Out of all the gimmicky moments of her being possessed and acting out, that one I think is
The moments of
prob-
stillness.
Yeah, I think that's the scariest.
Just the tension.
Hold on them continually just saying the power of Christ
And
compels
and
you.
And it goes and goes.
yeah, you think it's going to stop, and they keep going.
They keep going.
It feels like a 5-minute scene.
And you think, oh, that's the exorcism done.
He's like,
I guess
"Let's
we win.
take a break.
Let's take a
and
break.
then
You're
we'll
like,
start again."
I want to do it again.
And one of the scenes that was cut from the theatrical version that's so heartbreaking, again, which is just a great like buzzword or catch-all for this movie, is when Von Sydow and Jason Miller are out there and he's like, "Why would the demon do this to a little girl?" And he says, "I think it's to make us despair, to make us feel animal and ugly, to make us feel like we could be rejected and that God doesn't love us." And you're
it's
like,
picking
"Oh my
It's
God."
taking the most defenseless thing you can and brutalizing it.
It's so upsetting.
It's horrendous.
Apparent-
What about when Sadow's doing the thing? He's halfway through it. He's looking at Miller, and he's like, "That's your line."
Yeah, that's it. That's what he believes. When he's like, "The response, Damien." Yes. Apparently, the way they got her levitating is in film in the day, they could remove the wires in post, but it looked a little obvious. They painted the wires to match the background of the set. But because they kept wanting to move the camera, they had to basically do it frame by frame and continually repaint the wires. So that's why you can't see the wires, because Friedkin just insisted that they do
So
that.
tedious, but incredible.
He's insane. He's an insane person. This is an astounding film that I'll love for the rest of my life.
I'm exhausted. Can we finish?
Yeah.
It's just
It's a lot.
awful. It's
Frank, are you better for it?
No.
I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Hang on. You regret watching The Exorcist?
No, because it's one of the greatest films of all time and it's iconic. Like, I'm glad to have seen
Big
it.
line.
It is. It's stood the test of
I think
time.
it's-
It's laid the groundwork for every horror film to come
I
afterwards.
rephrase. That's a big line from you.
Yes.
But
I get what you mean.
I'm not wrong.
You're not wrong.
I'm just...
No. Oh. You're not wrong.
I think anyone could come to me and say this is one of their top 10 movies. And I'd be like, totally makes sense. It's The Exorcist. So not throwing anything in.
I can't go higher. If anything, after listening and revisiting it, I would go lower, but I don't want to because the film is good. But I feel like shit.
Yeah.
I feel like Linda Blair.
We've taken 5 years of his life with this
honestly,
conversation.
look
He
at me.
looks worn.
Look at me.
Look at him. Can you imagine? They once cast him as Figaro in Wicked.
Figaro.
Can't remember the character's name already.
Is anyone else throwing anything in?
I'm going to give it a 9.
Hey!
Nice.
Yeah, I'll start at 10.
Oh, yay!
Beautiful film.
That's cool. That's good. I'm glad that's over. I'm glad I chose it. I
I'm
legitimately
glad
feel
you chose it.
I feel how you feel. I feel that way watching it every time, and I'm like, it's weird. I like this feeling, but I do. But it's.
You're going to go nice and fluffy on the next choice, aren't you?
please, God.
Can we get a fluffer in here?
What's a fluffer, Tom? What's a fluffer?
What are the
Explain
rules
that.
anymore?
It's for the dick.
Come on, man. Thanks for listening to Throw in the Power. My name is Frank.
My name's Marcus.
My name's Tom.
That was The Exorcist.
And that was for the dick.
for the dick.
Stop saying it.
What?
The
Dick?
power of Christ compels your dick. Send us an
Okay.
Instagram, throwinthepal at Instagram or throwinthepal@gmail.com.
The power of Tom compels you.
Nothing.
No.